exciting to have a webinar at last after 2 years to show us what we've been doing and how we're going and what we'll be doing in the future. Let me first introduce you to my team, who have all joined you. We're going to be on camera for a few minutes just to see, so you can all recognize who we are. And then once we've been introduced, we'll switch off the cameras and then go into the demo itself. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Karita Case, who's my oldest employee. He's more of like a team now, person that joined. Been with us for over 30 years, 35, I think. Hey, Karita, 35 years?
Yes, you're keeping count. I've lost count.
Lost count. It's fantastic that you're still with us. How you've done it, we don't know, but you'll let us into the secret how you cope with me. But we'll discuss that later at a later date. I think you haven't all met Wayne. I think you all met Karita before through RecXpress and doing answering support questions, etc. You haven't met Wayne Roach, who's been with us for over 25 years. I think it's 28 years, Wayne.
Yeah, since 1996.
Sure, since 1996. Wayne joined us in 1996 and wrote a little program for me to change the GL accounts. Took him, I think it took you a month, hey, Wayne?
Yeah, and you said you would not repeat the story.
And I said I would not repeat the story. Sorry, Wayne.
We didn't rehearse this.
No, we didn't, but I couldn't resist.
Don't get into an argument now.
No. And then Murty obviously also joined us many years ago, 26, 27 years, Murty.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and she's certainly done very well with us and helps us with all the software assurance support, sales, knows the products backwards, knows the clients. It's fantastic to have Murty on board. Samantha joined us 5 years ago, Sam. 5 years?
Yes.
Yes, 5 years ago you joined us, and you're doing fantastically well helping Murty with software assurance. We'll discuss in a few minutes how well that's doing. But she's a great member to the team and really, really excelled. And then, of course, our final employee, which is actually my daughter, Natalie Perrell. And Natalie, we're saying 2 years, Natalie, but it's actually been 6 months. Am I correct?
Yes.
But you did work with us before, about 2 years ago for a bit. But I think I gave Natalie some development to do on the WebUIs, not WebUIs, on our web, on our web screens, and she didn't like it very much, so she gave it up for a month or two, and then rejoined us now. And now she's joined us on the marketing, software support, web design, and documentation. And you can see she's improved all the PPTs beautifully for us and made them look really readable and easy to go through. So that is the Peresoft team that is now helping us, and they're going to also help me with the webinar. So I say fantastic bunch of people, really great. And I promise you that we've been together for many, many years. And it's really been good to have you with us, to have such a strong team behind me. Okay. The past 2 years have proven to be a very, so let me go to the introduction first. Okay, so that's the introduction. So we'll now move on. Sorry, I should have shown you that slide, but I forgot to tick there. But we won't worry, but you've all met the people now. So for the past 2 years, okay, we've had a very solid growth in our products, and we've actually sold another couple of hundred companies have joined us over the very difficult period of COVID, and we've come out the other end with a very, very strong base of users. People have really been sticking to our product, and we haven't had any issues with people running away or anything. And because of, we have the best dealers, I think, in the world. I mean, you guys that have joined us today in the webinar are, I think, the top dealers. And I think due to that success of our dealers, we have kept clients for years and years. And how do I know this? And I'll tell you how I know this is that when we do our software assurance each month, we get like a 99.5% return on software assurance. 99.5% of the clients don't go anywhere. They stick with Sage 300. They're happy with the Cashbook. They're happy with the products, and they really don't need to move away. And we've actually only lost about 150, 200 clients in 22 years, which I think is quite an amazing feat. But that just shows you how we've kept up with the times and how we've actually been able to keep the clients happy and keep them using the products. This gives us a huge advantage as well, because can you imagine, with so many clients using our software continuously, we've built a very solid product with rich and reliable, rich in features and reliable in consistency and running the software, which we've actually shown. And you can see that our since 1984, when we first wrote the DOS Cashbook, today it's 2022. And that's 40 years. It's an incredible record. I must be honest with you, incredible. We've seen other products come and go, like WordStar and Lotus and a few others, but yet we still are using Sage 300, still using Cashbook, and all very familiar to us. And we certainly know what we're doing. I would say, like I will repeat it again, our dealers know the product. It's unbelievable to see. Thousands of companies are using Cashbook today, thousands and thousands of users. Okay, and the other thing we've done with our software, because we're working in Africa, we've designed it around the user, around the dealer, and we have kept it specifically designed for the market in Africa. So we're very proud of this, and we're very proud of what you guys have done for us and your support. It's incredible. I mean, I'm astounded. We then released, obviously our RecXpress and our EFT Express, and our RecXpress product just took the reconciliation just to a different level. Today, you walk into a client, you tell them, listen, we're going to take your bank recon, we're going to cut it down from 2 weeks to like a morning, and they all think you're just giving us, the good old computer rhetoric, this computer can do this and it's just amazing. But you actually put it into practice and you show them it can be done. And then the next thing, after a few months, they're running their Cashbook month ends and in literally a morning. And that is after we've now got over 100 banks and over 250 bank formats available for RecXpress. So we know that when you walk into a site, you're going to walk in with the words that you've sold them the software for, and we know that you will succeed. And not only does the success come from doing the products correctly and installing them correctly, it also comes from the support we give you and the support that you ask for. We've had over 75,000 questions on our forums since 2000, and all of them have been answered and everyone's been addressed. I don't think we've left one person out there in the cold. So that's also an incredible feat. You can't replace that. You can't just replace that, with other software. It's just, when you build a foundation like that, it's solid. It's future perfect as well. And we made sure it was future perfect, because once we released the WebUIs, we just took the software to a different level. And we now let you log in from wherever you are, and you in the software, and you know that the program, the back end of that program, was based on solid performance over the years. So I think you really all deserve a hand, and well achieved. You've done amazingly for us, and we're very proud of that. And I'll tell you what, it's a result of 40 years of development, 40 years of support, and living and breathing ACPAC. And I know I say the word ACPAC still, because that's where it all came from. So on that little wrap, on that little rant, I think it's we can go now into the demo, and we can show you where we're going. And I'll tell you, where we're going is even more powerful and even more exciting. So let's go to our next slide, which is our first product we released in the last 2 years, which is basically the WebUIs. And the WebUIs, okay, you can take me off now. I think it's enough of my face. I can now relax.
You have to turn.
I must take myself off. Okay, cool, no problem at all. Okay, now let me just ask you, while we're doing the demo, you're welcome to interject. We don't want to just talk and then you just listen. If you have a question and you see something you want to ask, just put up your hand and Natalie will unmute you and you can ask a question, or you can put a question in the chat, and then we'll just stop in the middle of whatever we're doing and we'll actually talk about your question, because we don't want you to leave it all to the end if necessary, because you might have an idea right there and then. So we're very happy to share that with you. Okay, so when we released the WebUIs, you can see the picture I've got there. I've got on the left, I've got the on-premise web screens, and on the right, I've got the WebUI screens, okay? The on-premise VB screens and the WebUI screens, we try to design them very similar, almost identical. The beauty of the left, on the right-hand side, is the WebUIs running an Apple Mac. And you can see that's the beauty of having it on the internet and through a browser. So what we did when we did the WebUIs, we had to redesign the front end only. Okay, and we did do that. So the views on the left, you'll see I've got all the views and how they're working and how they interact with the WebUIs. And you can see, because the views were developed over years and years, we only had to write the front end. So we didn't have to start being careful, worried about how the data is processed. That data had been cleaned and debugged over years. So when you install the WebUIs, you're still using the back end of the on-premise product. And that back end is solid, and it certainly hasn't been changed even in the last few years, because that's where we protect the data from the database. So all the processes and postings are extremely efficient because they run on the server. They don't run on your local station, and they obviously process at the same speed as what the on-premise speed is. It's the same particular operation. And this has come from originally designing the Windows product on a true three-tier architecture. That true three-tier architecture gives you the separation of the UI, the user interface, from the view, which is the data processing engine, to the actual database itself. And there are three separate objects in our programs. Hence, on the right, you can see you've got the on-premise. I mean, the picture in the middle, you've got the on-premise and the WebUIs. The only difference between the on-premise and the WebUIs is that the WebUI goes via the internet, where the on-premise sits on the actual machine itself, on the computer itself. They then go process through the views and onto the SQL database. Okay. And do you want to add anything to that, Wayne, before I go on to the actual WebUI itself? Karita, Wayne, anybody want to add? I think
I think you covered it perfectly well, Bob. I mean, the whole issue being that all the business logic and all the validation, all the solidity hasn't changed between on-premise and WebUIs.
So when we fix a bug, it obviously gets transferred to both systems straight away. So that's also a very good thing to do. So it's not a separate issue. It's not a separate system. So the WebUIs themselves, okay, are easy to install. I mean, we're installing a very simple JavaScript MVC. It's not linked like in the Visual Basic, where you have to register the program. The WebUIs just run in a browser, and the browser loads it, and off you go. And I think you've noticed that when you have issues with the WebUIs, we've told you just to reset IIS, restart the Sage CNA service, etc., and then it should run without a problem. And I think most people have found that. I think the biggest issue is, we'll come to that later, is keeping up with the versions. Okay, but we'll talk about that later. The beauty about WebUIs as well, you install it once. Once you've installed it, you can have as many people logging in from wherever they are, as long as you've got LAN packs, and there's no workstation set up. So that's also very, very efficient. It makes it even more efficient, and it cuts down on the installation cost for the user. You install it once and everybody can run it. Of course, from anywhere, from a browser, from any computer, from any laptop, on your cell phone, it all runs. It's lovely to use, especially when you can't go to the office anymore because of the situation we've been through the last 2 years. So really, we have taken this Sage 300 software, the Cashbook, and we've lifted it into the future. We have taken away the legacy term that people have tried to pin us with and removed that completely, and we are now future perfect. And it can only get better, and you will see what we've done with the WebUIs in one of our products, which we'll mention later. The sky will be the limit, and it's really exciting to go there. Okay, does anybody have any questions yet on the WebUIs? Because we're going to go to the next screen, which shows you lots of lines and lots of pictures. But if you look on the left and you look on the right, you'll see on the right we've got an on-premise batch entry, and on the left we've got the WebUI. And you can see that all of the WebUI stuff and the on-premise are in the same place. So the user, when they go into the WebUIs, will be straight away familiar with what they're dealing with. They won't have to worry about relearning the product. There's a few things we've changed here. For example, the export, import, and customize under the option menu. We've also allowed you to shrink the screen, to shrink the fonts, and to even move it, to make it smaller so you can see more on the screen. But in general, you're allowed to edit the columns. You can zoom in. You can expand, hide. So we've really given a lot of flexibility to the client. And I love the names we give it. For example, we've got the hamburger. Obviously, I'm not going to say where it came from, but it's a hamburger because it looks like a hamburger. Okay, and that is our zoom button, for example, or drill down. And then, of course, somebody guy said, well, if you're going to have a hamburger, let's create the menu at the top and we'll call them breadcrumbs. So, I mean, there are some strange technology words that we use in WebUIs, but once you know what they are, you can have a smile on your face and say, well, this doesn't look like breadcrumbs, but, you know, we'll call it breadcrumbs and just carry on like we think it's a good name. But anyway, we're not going to say much, but it really, really works well. I don't even use on-premise anymore. We only go in via WebUIs.
That is correct.
Yeah, you never go on-premise.
Never go on-premise.
Excepting for one thing, and that is to do backups.
Yes.
Okay, which is now, we will show you just now, we have created a product which does it for you, but that is coming in a few minutes. Okay, great. So that is our WebUI. So we released this product at the beginning of 2000. We are actually now on our third version already. So it just shows you how amazing it's doing and how much they've improved it. I mean, one of the biggest improvements they added was in the last version was where the Finder could only scroll forward, really. Now we've got it scrolling backwards and forwards. I know it sounds like a simple thing that should have been done at the beginning, but it wasn't that simple to do. And yet now they've done that. And we'll soon be doing it to the grids as well. So that's also going to be in the future. Cool. Right, we're now going to go into the actual features that we've added to the actual products themselves. Right, now these are latest product enhancements. Okay, right. In the last two versions or three versions, we've had to obviously keep up with Sage, and we've had to add a few more features to the product. And the first feature we added was a withholding tax. And I think Wayne will quickly just take you through that. If you can just take over for a second, Wayne.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So the withholding tax works similar to all the other taxes. You set it up in tax services per authority, and then on invoice creation in AP and AR, you will assign a withholding tax authority. And only on the applying of the invoice, when you're actually paying it, is a withholding tax calculated, and it's automatically calculated as the applied amount as a percentage of the invoice total. It calculates withholding tax, and then posting will send it through to GL and tax services, etc. So we've done the exact same thing in our Cashbook batch entry allocation screen. You just enter the amount, pull up the invoice that has been set up with withholding tax. We'll automatically calculate it for you. We allow you to drill down into it. As you can see there, the detail tax withheld, and you can check if the amount's right. You can overwrite it, and then when you post it, we post it through to APAR and GL, and same as before. Obviously, everything backed up in the tax audit files.
Brilliant. Excellent. Great feature. Okay, I think people are starting to use it more and more. Okay, they haven't used it before because they were work around it, but now that it's available, it's actually becoming more and more popular. Okay, we've also done the 12-character enhancements. I'm going to quickly say that Sage went to 22 characters in some of their references. We couldn't quite go there because our reference is everywhere, and for us to do a conversion at this point in time would have just been too massive, and also to fit them on the reports, etc. So what we've done is we've increased the reference check to 12 characters to go to ARAP. Karita, do you want to fill in a bit more here?
Yes, so we've got the 12 characters for AP and AR refunds, which were 9. And but then when we do a retrieval, we'll retrieve AP checks, which are 15, and AR check receipts, which are 24.
And
so we do that. Yeah. So.
And yeah, at the bottom, we put the full check or receipt number from the retrieval. So it'll be 22 characters at the bottom of the screen, hey, Karita?
Yeah, either 15 or 24, depending on if it's AR or AP.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And you can see here when you retrieve it here, the full vendor check number is at the bottom of the screen here. Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, and over here on premise. Now you can see just by looking at this, the familiar screens. I mean, you can hardly, you can see this is in a browser and you can see this is on premise, but the client will absolutely relate to it without a problem. It's amazing how we've done these web screens. Okay. In RecXpress itself, Karita, we've also allowed you to match using those check numbers. Am I right?
Yes, so if you select the use AR/AP reference check, that will match your imported reference from your bank statement to the customer reference check field. So either the 15 or the 24.
Or the 24. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Right. Okay. EFT, you want to tell them about the new EFT flag we've added?
Yes. Okay. So that was since 6.7. So obviously some people have seen that. But we added that so that you can include entries in the batch that you do not want to export to the bank. For example, foreign payments that can only go through the bank's Forex department. So that way that you can still have one EFT batch with a total amount, making it easier to balance back.
Correct. Balance back to your batch that you wanted to make sure was all the correct amounts. Okay,
so yes, simple. All the transactions.
Sorry?
We have a question in the chat where
yes.
Are the 15 characters alphanumeric or numerics only?
I think accounts payable is numeric only and AR is alphanumeric.
We obviously limited to what AR and AP can take. And AP, they've increased what they call the check number, not really the reference. So the AP check number has to be numeric. So that hasn't changed. And we can't push through an alphanumeric to AP, it'll reject it. So we aren't in control of that. But if you want them to make it alphanumeric, I don't think they're going to be with you. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. Right, that's what we've done in the past. Okay, so just to quickly say, any other questions you'd like to ask that we've done in the previous versions? I don't think we've left anything out, have we? I'm trying to think now. Not really, no. What we probably have left out is that we've had to keep up with their versions, but we'll discuss that again later of why we discuss that. Okay, great. Now the future roadmap. This is now exciting because we've got some ideas. We've come up with some ideas to go and add them to our product. Okay, the first thing that we've come up with is for the user to be able to customize the GL batch description in General Ledger. What we found was we were boring. We were very boring. We were sending the GL-CB posting sequence number. Now that's all very nice and simple if you know what the posting sequence was linked to, but in reality, you wouldn't know what that batch was at all. So what we've done now is you're allowed to put in the posting sequence, you're allowed to put in the batch ID, and you're also allowed to put in the description from Cashbook batch into the GL batch description, which is very, very useful because now you'll see in GL what those batches were and where they came from in Cashbook, which I think is a great feature. So you will now get a variety of descriptions going through the GL. And you can see from the bottom screen here that you can actually customize it accordingly by choosing what you want to put in to those batches yourself. Okay. This is obviously on the on-premise, and this is now on the WebUIs, the same situation. Okay. Anything else you want to add here, Carita? Oh, we want to talk about that in a minute. So this is basically setting up your description for the GL batch description in the GL batch list. Okay, great. I'm going to move a bit faster here. Right. When you do that, you will see, look at the two descriptions here, much more useful. Miscellaneous tax entries, file, and look at this, posting sequences, all nicely listed for you. Payments, receipts. So now when you look at these batches, you'll see the bank, you'll see the payment, you'll see this posting sequence, and you will see the description from Cashbook itself, which makes it much more informative. Okay.
Yes, that's only if you append and that you won't get, or consolidate, that you won't get those descriptions.
You'll just get the latest description, am I right?
If you append, you'll get whatever the last batch was.
And the word append, I think you've put in the word appended batch.
Okay, we'll discuss that, but because if the last open batch was say 203, it's just going to append to that batch and not change the description.
Okay, and if that's okay, so normally you append to batches when you do reversals and you work in the bank record, so it'll still be a reversal batch with the same description, correct description.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Our previous version, this is a big change. It's a very subtle change, but it's actually a very big change. In our previous versions, when you post a range of batches, well, in our current versions actually, which are now released, if you post a range of batches, We used to create, or we do create, one batch. The problem with that is it merges all the batches into one. This is a problem when you want to have different descriptions for your geo listing and for your geo batch list, or you want to keep your batches separate so you can match them back to the Cashbook batches more easily. So we added a feature now in options where you can say post batches separately. And this will then automatically create one batch per Cashbook batch in General Ledger. This is the way AR and AP have worked. And we didn't do that a while back because it's a huge change, actually. Subtle but big, because now we post a batch and then we post it and then we do the next one and the next one. This will also unlock data. Am I right, Karita? It will also let you, it won't lock the database for long anymore.
It'll release it between batches.
Yeah, so that's actually also a good thing because SQL can lock when we do a rollback or a begin trans, which is basically how we process the batches. It obviously locks the SQL database for a moment. So when you post the batch, it'll release the database and then you can process something else in between. But this is actually a big change, and we've given you the option to switch it on and off in the options because obviously we don't want you to suddenly change it and the client didn't know what happened. So we give you the option to go in there and change it. So when you get the next version and you want to do this, remember, you've got to go into options and change it yourselves to make it do this. Okay, a great change, but a big one. Okay. Another request we had at Karita was for us to be customizing our descriptions and our references that go through to ARAP. Am I right?
For the retrievals, yes. Which fields to bring through to the reference?
Sorry, the retrievals, correct. Okay, so you want to just quickly?
Yes, so previously we were just importing the remittance ID, but people asked for different fields, so we've given the choice of those three. Okay. Except for AR. AR is, I'm sorry, AR refunds are a bit different. That doesn't give you as many choices, but yeah, those were the three main ones.
Okay, so you can do remittance ID, transaction reference, or payment code. Okay, excellent. Brilliant. Again, you have to set this up in the new version. It will obviously still default to the original way we've been doing the transfers. So if you want to then customize it later on, you can go in there and quickly change it in options. Okay. Okay, we didn't get a chance to do, I mean, these aren't really, how would you call it? These aren't really enhancements. I think we had the drill down before in Cashbook. We didn't have it in RecXpress properly. So we've added a drill down in RecXpress now, where you can drill down and you can actually edit the entries by line in the drill down form, which makes it easier. And instead of having to scroll up and down or left and right on the grid, you can now do a drill down and actually go in here and edit the options more easily in RecXpress. And we've obviously done it for the WebUIs as well. That's also not in the current WebUIs. So we put in the drill down feature, which sometimes people prefer to use because, like I said, it's easier than scrolling in the actual grid itself. And you can see all the entries at once, all the information at once for the entry. Makes it nice. Okay. Okay, EFT Express, we did quite a bit of work. Right, Karita, go for it. This is Karita's boyki.
And Wayne. So we're busy with a few. That's got the hard part. So we're busy with a few new features for EFT, and please, if you have suggestions, on what else you would like for EFT, we'd really like to know. So the first one is the output destination. At the moment, the output is to the directory that you set up. That's in on-premise, and in the WebUIs, it's your default download directory. So we've added 3 new options: FTP, SFTP with password, and SFTP with the key file.
For security, yes, correct.
Yes, yes. So that's what we've added for the output.
Yeah. Okay. And where's the actual field name? Here's the actual.
That's the next slide, yeah. So then we've also allow you now to set up your own file name when you export. So you can customize it. So some banks want the time and the date and that in the file name. So we were previously hard coding it, but now we'll let you just set up your own.
Which is, and I think it's quite a big demand for that now.
Yes, especially with these new XML files as well.
Correct. Brilliant.
So, and then we're also busy with encryption, as a few people in the past have asked for this. So a lot of the bank formats already include hash totals, but even for these banks, you may want to encrypt the file before sending it to the bank or uploading it to FTP. So we've added PGP. And if you're using anything else or you'd like something added, then please let us know.
Brilliant. Yeah. This I think is very important, the encryption, because you don't want people fiddling with these files, and they need to be secured. So I think that's a very important part of this encryption. It's going to be used more and more in the future, I think. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So before we go to the next option, is there any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to say if anyone wants to unmute themselves, I have given them the permission to do so that they can ask any questions.
And we don't mind hearing from you. It will be nice to hear from you. So don't worry. We won't criticize you or anything. I can just talk. Cool. Okay. Right. So this is now the next product we've actually added to Cashbook at the moment. It's part of Cashbook because we're not separating it from, we can't do an ARA PGL, but you can run it in Cashbook, and it does go across all the data, across all the modules. Murty was entering her batches, and every time she had to do a backup, she'd have to go onto the server. Hey, Murty.
That is correct.
And you'd have to
now I can just work it.
Hold on, you'd have to have rights. You'd have to have rights to the server. Am I right? You'd have to have rights to the SQL database to just log in and do a backup. So people would not do backup. So I thought, let's make up a product, and we call it bakXpress. Back, of course, is .bakXpress. And bakXpress, written by Wayne, okay, he will take you through quickly what bakXpress does.
Yeah, okay, so it's quite simple to set up. There's what you're looking at here is the backup setup UI or user interface, and you can set up. We've divided the ability to automatically backup across 5 main functions: single posting, range reversals, clearing, and GL creation. So the administrator can set up here per user the option whether this should be enabled or not, whether confirmation is required. You can add a default description, and you can build the default description with a posting sequence or a batch ID or a batch description. And you can also have a different backup file name here. And these options can also be, the backup description can also be overwritten at the time. Say in a range post, it will default it to the default you've set up here. And you can then overwrite it, for example, saying reversal of salary run or something like that. So it's all very customizable.
I thought I'd just take you to the next screen just to show you what to mean. As a posting file. Yeah, go for it. Okay,
yeah, thanks. So one of the options per user is to require confirmation. So if you have that enabled, then when you do a range post, for example, the message will come up there saying, would you like to back up the database? If you select no, the process will be performed, but the backup won't. So the user has still got the option here to not do a backup. Maybe he doesn't want to waste the time. And this will be recorded and written to a backup audit file, so you always know what the user has selected. And you can also see in the screen on the left there where you can override the custom description at the time. So that will default to what you set up per user. And when you run in the function, you can quickly overwrite it with whatever's applicable at the time.
Just quickly go back here, just to show you that if you switch off confirm, then it does a backup automatically. They can't override it. And that's actually also, if you don't want them to override it, then you just switch off the confirm flag.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Good point. Yeah,
good point. And then what happens is you can then do a backup.
Yeah, so the other option is if you're not going to, well, on top of enabling it per major function, we've got a immediate backup or backup now, manual backup. So you can go there at any point and just do a backup on the fly, which obviously, like Bob said, backs up the entire database, all your API or GL, etc. This is not linked to any particular function. You just run it if and when you want. And the grid you're seeing there is just giving you the history of all your previous backups straight from the SQL database, which you can display from a particular date onwards and for any particular user.
Yes, this is very useful, and I'll tell you why. Because if you use a file name, you can have a daily file name. So you put the file name, say unlimited dash, and the date. Then you do all your backups for that day, and it'll keep a nice list of it all for you, and give you an audit trail, which we'll go in a second and just show you the audit trail. But the beauty is, in each day you can rename this file, and each day you can have a separate backup for each day, which is very nice, very useful. And then you've got no issues with something crashes, something doesn't work, you can go back to a backup. You won't have that comment of saying, oh, it was too much work to do a backup. It's just too efficient. It's just fantastic, this. And Murti, I think you're really enjoying using this, am I right? It's
definitely.
I mean, you're more relaxed, eh?
Very much so.
We have a question in the chat.
Yes.
How much are we talking in pricing for this backup utility?
It comes with Cashbook. It's not being priced yet. It's not a separate module yet. We want to see what people think first, and we can maybe separate it in the future. But at the moment, it's built into Cashbook. It comes with Cashbook. It's a Cashbook feature. Now, if you don't want to use the backup program, if you switch off the security, it doesn't even appear on the menu. Okay, but this is really a feature that we're adding to Cashbook itself because we think it's critical. Remember, you're sitting far away from the server. You're sitting at home, and the server's somewhere else, and you want to have to log in remotely to do a backup. So this is definitely a nice feature to add to Cashbook.
We have another question. Does the utility backup Cashbook data only or the whole database?
Wayne?
Yeah, so it's an SQL backup, actually, so it'll back up the entire database.
Yeah, we don't want to separate backups like they say, a partial backups. I don't know what they call them, another name, because that gets a bit dangerous because you don't want to start fiddling and knowing where you are in another program and whatever. So you would definitely do a total backup is the best way to do a proper backup. We also lock the database so people can't, while it's doing a backup, it takes a minute or two, it won't let anyone change the database until it's finished, which is also very powerful. Okay. This is the audit trail, anyway. Any more questions? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Is there a way to restore from the utility or only to run the backups?
Now you'd have to restore from the database itself, because remember, you can't restore a database until everybody's out the system. And also not only do they have to be out the system, the actual RIS and CNA service sometimes has to be reset because it locks the database. So we can't do a restore from a WebUI because we're in the database. So it will not allow us. So no, you have to do a restore from the server. But let's be honest, when you do a restore, it's a last resort. And you don't want anyone doing a restore because they could overwrite other people's changes. So it's got to be done by admin, a restore. A restore is a major procedure, where a backup is a minor procedure, if you know what I mean. A minor as in it just runs it and does a backup, nothing changed, nothing created, nothing's overwritten. But a restore, you don't just do restores. It's done according to a certain way, and people have to know what they're restoring and where they're at. The beauty of this backup system is that you'll know exactly where the backup is at because you'll put in there backup after posting batch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or before posting. So that's the thing. No, you can't do a restore from within the program. Like I repeat, the database is locked, so we can't unlock it. Maybe one day what we'll do is we'll separate this. And if we separate it, we can then put in a restore function that unlocks a database. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Again, I'm going to repeat, when you do a restore, you're not going to just walk in there and do a restore. You want to check where you're at, who's at, what's at, why. It's a whole procedure. It needs permission from the admin guy. There's no doubt about it. Just to quickly show you, this is the audit trail. Oh, sorry, my dogs are barking. They heard a hardy dog.
Ramita says, thanks,
yes.
Perfectly controlled.
No, thank you. We thought
making sure users can't overwrite their databases.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you imagine a restore? You've entered like a batch of 100 entries, and some say, "I did a restore today because I didn't like what I did." Terrifying. Terrifying. The audit trail is beautiful, hey Wayne. Let's be honest. It shows exactly what you did. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing you want now is a user to decline the backup. You don't know why they would do that, but it's going to record everything. Nothing goes unrecorded.
Yeah. Brilliant. And you can select a certain range, and you can say, this one's failed, this one hasn't. Give me the successes, give me the fails, give me the user. Or Bobby, why are you doing all these backups, Bobby? You know what I mean? Oh my goodness, look at Bobby's backups. This is not good enough. Come on, you should know your program better than that. Okay, great. Excellent feature, this. And then finally, of course, you've got another report which just prints the setup itself. Okay, yeah, great. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so that's our products. And you can see we've been really hard at work creating and adding features to our products. You know, we've had a lot of other products out there trying to get into our how would I put this, into our
space,
into our space. Thank you, Wayne. You know, to try and take out a product that has got 40 years of features, 40 years of development, 40 years of added extras, huge amount of dealers knowing what they're doing. It's not that simple. It's dangerous. You know, you can't just walk in with something and say, listen, this is going to take over this, because you're going to be removing all these features we've built up from the users, from the dealers. We didn't just stick them in. We didn't say, oh, let me think of a good idea here. I'm not that clever. I got the ideas from other people, as well as from Murty. All right, Murty, you've also given me ideas. It doesn't just come from a bunch of engineers who do software development. In fact, the engineers who do software development normally lack ideas. They just stick to the certain functionality. With Sage 200 at this point in time, I would think, is at the peak of its development. I would say that. And of course, I'm not biased at all. You know what I mean? You see, if I was in a room, everybody would smile at me and say, never, Bobby. Not with those eyebrows. Never. Okay, cool. Right, now that is our features we've added. Okay, we'll be continuing to add features. We'll also be continuing to listen to you guys to get more information, how to add, what to add, because we're looking for stuff all the time. We're not going to be adding many more other products, but we are going to be adding more and more features in the future. And now this is where Natalie comes in. Okay, now Natalie has taken our documentation. I think you're a bit nervous to talk, Natalie, or do you want to talk?
Well,
don't worry. You've got the Perel surname. You're not going to fail.
So I've taken the documentation that we already had, and I've made it more legible so that it's easier to reference, especially when you know, if you're stuck and you want to look at something, it's much easier to go through, much like this webinar. That's mostly what all the new documentation looks like. And it's like they're quick reference guides. The one that my father really wants me to push is the sample data documentation, which runs you through how to use our sample data, which is a great way to also see how to use the software and yeah. And
see, what you've done, yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Natalie, but briefly just to say why I went with the sample data is when you go into the sample data, it takes you through step by step the rules, how the rules match the entries, how the entries are brought in, when to clear them, when not to clear them, what they create. And it's a great demo for your client because you can show them how each rule can pick up the reference, and by looking at the reference, it can find an invoice number in it, and it can allocate to payments in accounts payable, for example, and create payment batches. So, for example, you might be bringing in 2,000 payments from clients, and they've been told to put the reference or whatever in their reference in their bank, and it will automatically then pay the client's invoices. I mean, the creditors' invoices. We also do, because you can do balance brought forward, you can do invoice by amount, etc. The RecXpress sample data does it for both on-premise and on the web, and is a great way of learning the product yourselves, even, and seeing extra features. Number two, you can look at these sample data PPTs and PDFs, and you can come back to us and say, listen, guys, we need a PPT on this. We don't understand how this works. Can you give us a PDF? Natalie's very keen to do more. Am I right, Natalie?
Yes.
You must say yes.
Yes.
So therefore, our documentation has been jacked up a lot. We're going to be adding this to the help as well. So when we can have online help only in the future, where we remove our CHM file on your local on-premise. It's all going to go to online help, because when we keep adding stuff to PDFs, we're going to put them in the help as well, so that when they click, they can go to the help. Also, we've got a few videos in there that actually show you how certain things work. We will be changing the videos in the future with WebUIs, etc. So this is all going to be very, very much more informative and easy to read and quick reference. I mean, if you look at this one, I'm going to go back now very quickly. If you look at the screen here we've done, okay, I know I'm going back and it's whatever, but I want to show you this screen, for example, is a great screen for a user who's just gone and done WebUIs. And they go in there and they don't know what all these buttons mean. For example, how do you edit columns? How do you drag and drop the columns and apply the changes? How do you restore the defaults? Where do you zoom in? Where do you export, import? Okay, so this is a quick reference card. And these quick reference cards are very useful, especially when we start doing the next thing we're going to talk about, which is the actual versions of where we're at. Okay, I'll now flick through things, but not great. Okay, so we've got all kinds of PPTs, Natalie, like RecXpress, add rules, WebUIs, etc. Very nice. Install instructions, etc. Differences between the web and the on-premise screens, etc. If you have any suggestions or documents you would like to see, we would love to hear from you. Love it. Great. Okay, we've come almost to the end, and I think this is probably the most important part of the installation of the WebUIs. Sage keep releasing PUs, and when they release a PU, they seem to change the JavaScript, and they seem to update the JavaScripts, for example, or they update the MVC, or they update the code in their WebUIs, and you cannot go backwards. So if you've got a PU4, you have to make sure that you've installed the right WebUI from Peresoft for that PU4. So we've done 3 versions, as you can see here, 2020, 21, 22. They're all separate versions. They all work separately. They can't work together. They are separate. They've got to work with each other. And on each version, we've also got different WebUI versions. So for example, if you look at the WebUI screen, okay, I have to actually go back again. So just hold on to your horses for a second. If you look at the bottom here, of the screen, here's a good example. This one here is copyright 2022 Peresoft software version 3.01. Okay, that means we're on version 3.01. So if you go look at the WebUI compatibility list, you will see down here that 2022 WebUI's version 3.01 over here, and the Sage PU is PU1. So this is very crucial to know, and you'll find this actual list available either in the resources, or when you go into the forum on the right-hand side, before you can post a message, there's a little hyperlink that you can click on. It'll take you straight to the version compatibility list. And in here, we give you all the versions of what we released. Okay, now we obviously keep up with Sage, so we got 2020 to 22 here. So we don't support 2019, 18, or 17, because it would just be impossible for us to keep up and have so many computers installed with all those versions. So what happens is when we go to 2020, 21, 22, 2019 gets archived. We don't have a computer running it anymore. And that's why we don't support it. So it's also a good reason for you to keep your clients up to date. They've got to be up to date, because we also fix bugs, and so does Sage. in the latest PUs. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, but I've got a bug that does this. Unless they're on the latest PU, we don't know if we can even replicate it. Okay, so that's a very important compatibility list that is available to you. And we keep it up to date. Natalie keeps it going. Hey, Natalie.
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect.
I keep it up to date.
You do. That's for sure. Great. That's the end. And you know what? Our timing is fantastic. It's 12:02. We started about 12 minutes past, so we've still got a few minutes left. And we fitted it all in together. And I must say, it's been really great for us to show off our new features. And we love the feedback. So now, any more questions? We have our own question, actually. So if you don't have any, I've got a question. Anyone want any questions quickly?
If you have a question, just unmute yourself. You are more than welcome.
Or send us a chat. Up to you. Okay. I have a question. What am I going to keep quiet? Never
here we go. We have a question.
Yeah. Yes.
More of a request. Please remove option to clear EFT bank audit report or have option to give rights to clear to specific users.
Cool. Good idea.
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent idea. We'll give it a security. That's a very good idea. That's a very good idea, and especially with EFT. Excellent. Great. Next. Come, we want more. We've got to keep ourselves busy. Okay, there is a question I have, and that is, what's happening with the bank feeds? Okay. I don't think anybody has seen the bank feeds, but we will be doing a separate RecXpress webinar in the future. We will go through RecXpress again with the demo, going through all the rules, and also how the bank feeds are or are not working. The biggest problem we've had with the bank feeds is licensing, and secondly, we had no influence over what the bank feed gives us, and there's certain transaction codes missing, and the reason that the way the bank feeds work at the moment is they're going through they do what they call a screen grab. They don't have a direct link to the bank itself, and the banks don't even know how they do it. At the moment, the banks are busy developing their own APIs, application program interfaces, for us to be able to work with. And we are very close. We've done it now with Nedbank. We actually finished the API interface. We're now waiting for Nedbank to get legal authorizations to allow us to do what we want to do. So we're a bit delayed on that. We do already have what we call an e-statement built into RecXpress, which does link to the Sage 300 bank feed. But like I said, the transaction codes are not there, and there's a few things missing. So you'll get a better matching if you import a file that we have designed and customized more specifically to the client's needs, where the bank feed is a little bit too generalized. But we do have a bank feed interface, and it does retrieve the transactions for you, and you can use it now. It is available. I don't think anybody has seen Sage 300 bank feeds at all. Has anybody seen it? Anybody want to put in their chat? Has anybody seen how it works at all?
Says, I wish you had started with Standard Bank.
No, I agree with you. And we've approached these banks, but they don't answer us. We say, hi, guys, we do bank feeds. I mean, we want to talk to you guys. Don't get an answer. Don't get an answer. But I'd love to do it. I wish you would contact Standard Bank and kick their butts and try and see if you can get them to talk to us. Because we've dropped emails, we just don't get through. Because we're not clients, you see. They tend to ignore us. But yes, if you want us to do that, we'd love to do it. We'd love it. So if you can maybe contact them, and if you're a client of theirs, or get one of your customers, one of your clients to get hold of them and use a bit of their influence to get hold of us, we would happily get involved. Happily. Okay. I know that
he says very stubborn bunch.
They are, but you know what? They're corporates. We just a small business. I mean, let's be honest. We're not a big business. We're small. So we make decisions together easily because we don't have different departments. When you're dealing with a corporate, each department makes its decision, and you can't. And I think, when I look at the people that are on this webinar, most of us are small business. yet we support corporates. So, we know how we work because we make our own decisions. I talk to Carita and Wayne and say, do this. They don't have to go now to another department and get permission. They just do it. So that is a problem. The banks are corporates and they have separate departments doing separate things and they don't know what each other are doing. I'll give an example. I went in the other day and I did a direct EFT payment for something on the internet. So you go direct EFT and it actually takes you to your bank account and lets you log in and do an EFT. So I then called the bank and I said, guys, I want that interface. They don't even know where it's done. They don't even know who did it. They don't even know which department did it. It's beyond them. And we can't find out who did it. It's weird. It's weird. It really is. And that's where we're at the moment. Also, we've got 250 interfaces. There's no ways 250 interfaces are going to be all in bank feeds. It just isn't going to happen. It's just too many. And a lot of them are all over the world and they just don't have a bank feed. But I can see the banks getting there. I can see them doing it. I can see that happening in the future. And I reckon by the end of this year, we should have the majority of bank feeds working. I would love a bank feed because you don't have to worry about what you're importing and the date. It just brings in the unique ones and never, ever duplicates. So that would be great to do. And that is our future. So just let the banks catch up with us. And then we'll be A for away. Okay. So that is where we're at. Great. Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to know, when will these new enhancements and features actually be available? When are we releasing them?
To be honest with you, I think it will only be on the next version, not on a PU.
Okay, I'm glad.
Yes.
I'm not finished the encryption.
Yeah, I understand, because we cannot, it's got database changes in it. We're going to be doing a big conversion. It's going to be a convert on the keys and a convert on the GL batches. It's going to be a convert. So we can't add fields and add keys and add all kinds of stuff in the middle of a version. Okay. Yes.
Right, so it'll be September somewhere.
It will be September, yes. It will be September. As soon as we have beta, people can ask us for a beta. The dealers can come and ask. We have to wait for Sage to give
Sage's
us
beta.
So again, we ruled by Sage. But as soon as we do, we are very happy to share that with the dealers to help us test. Because I'm sure they'd like the backup system. I mean, that backup system is just fantastic.
Esnath says, I have an issue I would like to take outside this webinar.
We have open forums with you. We'd love to talk to you. Drop us we prefer the forum because obviously we like to know exactly what versions you're on and exactly what you've got installed. And also sometimes it's already been answered on the forum. So please post it on the forum. I agree with you. This is not the platform to do it. It has to be on a forum. It has to be with your version. It has to be with your PU, etc., etc. But we'd love to sort it out for you. If it's an issue with us, something we're doing wrong or we aren't so cool about, you can happily drop us an email and we'll happily answer you. Of course, please do that. Okay. But we'd love to hear from you. Don't for 1 minute think we don't want to hear from you. We'd love to. Okay. Good. Anyone else? So please, by the way, after the session, please straight away contact us. Cool. Anything else?
That's everything in the chat.
Any other questions, Wayne? Carita?
No, I'm out.
Bertie?
No.
Brilliant. Okay, everyone, thank you very, very much for joining us. We really appreciated it and we really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. It was so great to last communicate with everybody. It's taken 2 years for us to get this going, and we will be having many, many more after this. Training, demos on the PPTs, etc., etc., etc. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone.
you everyone
Yeah,
for joining
thank you.
us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.